I want to welcome back Rahil. Rahil graduated with a master's in IT 2 years ago. Is that right?
Last year, 1 year ago.
Last year.
Yep.
And your name is still on the wall here somewhere too. And Rahil is now working at Kayak. So we've got you're up next and to tell us a little about software development and the work that you're doing at Kayak.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, first of all, Matt, that was a great presentation. Honestly, I do not have a presentation, but I'm going to talk my experience at Sandbox, Bentley, and basically what I'm doing at Kayak and how I got into Kayak. So I started working at Sandbox in 2017 as a grad tutor. And in my experience, basically, it's kind of that you don't have to. So one thing I would like to mention is how Sandbox basically kind of helped me brush up my technology skills. Is you got to teach students and you got to interact with students every time, every day, basically helping them with Java and any questions around IT. That really helps you to kind of always keep your skills in practice, so you don't lose that. And secondly, your yep. So that's the Sandbox skills basically. I worked there for 1.5 years, and I kind of started my internship in 2018 at a software company in Waltham. Basically, what I was doing is I was building chatbots and translation services for this company. This was a compliance company, and what issues they were having at the time is the product was globally used, and someone in China or someone in Europe using this tool and trying to get the information that's being logged in US, and they wanted those text or any kind of voice recording translated back to their own native language. So what we kind of did is we kind of built a small POI and POC that would basically use these third-party APIs and kind of translate these text and voice messages back to the native languages. And that was really a good experience for me. One, I got to actually build the entire tool, kind of got a chance to develop the UX, UI, the backend code, the databases, relational databases, and everything. And in my experience, what really helped me is all the courses and my experience at Sandbox. Basically was able to easily apply there, building the databases and the backend code and the architecture designing and that stuff. So that was kind of a cool thing to do at that time, and really good experience in my sense. That kind of helped me in my resume, that you get a really good point to actually talk about these things when you're in an interview. So that was my experience when I was in the internship. So Kayak, actually, I'm a software engineer at Kayak. I basically manage the hotels vertical backend code, and by backend I mean when you go to Kayak. And I'm sorry if anyone who doesn't know what Kayak is actually a travel website. Basically, you can go and book your flights and hotels and rent a cars and tours and everything. So it's actually a meta search. And what I mean by meta search is it goes and hits probably hundreds or maybe more than hundreds of websites, gets all the data, kind of combines and massages the data in a form that we show you the cheapest option, or maybe a cheapest option or cheapest flight that you could choose. And it's not always the cheapest option, but it's more kind of based to give a user something that they would probably actually go and book for. So if I give you a cheapest flight, and if I say you don't have a carry-on luggage and you don't have any luggages that you can take with you, you're not probably going to book that flight. So what we would do is actually get the data, try to figure out what would be the best plus the cheapest option for a user to actually go and book it. and this applies for everything if you go for flights and hotels or rental cars. So I actually work with the backend hotel section, and currently, due to the COVID situation, obviously no one's traveling. The travel industry is probably the one that is hit a lot. And then what we are trying to do is at the hotel's backend, we are trying to show user the options that are more like an Airbnbs and rental properties than the hotels. So the user is not going to not going to go to an hotel and stay, but you would rather choose to go to some national park or somewhere in New Hampshire, and you would probably book the rental property. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to um, figure out a way where we could exclude things, where we could show a variety of things to the user. Initially, we just had hotels, but now we're trying to segregate everything, show them hotels, stays, rental, even RVs and camping sites and everything. So user can selectively select what they want and where they want to go. Um, and the other project that I'm working on right now is more like in data caching. So what I mean by data caching is if you are the user, and you would want to go and book a hotel, and if you hit the search button, you would want the results in probably like a second or two. If I let you wait for like 6 seconds, you're probably going to close the website. So no one really wants to wait for like 6 seconds or 7 seconds. Time is really crucial during the search. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to in the back end, we're trying to cache everything, cache the rates, cache the data of the hotel um, rates in um, before the user would actually search. And what would go inside that is actually predicting what the user is going to book. So we have our own prediction model and the algorithm, which basically decides that what hotel is going to be booked by a user in the near future. And then what we do is we go and try to cache that data. Um, and so far the model's been reacting pretty good, so we're pretty confident about that, and we're going forward to actually kind of update the model as we go forward. But that's the one experience that it's an ongoing project right now, but it's a really cool experience right now with most of the technologies that we use around this. So beforehand, I didn't have an experience with Python and Kafka and Snowflakes and these technologies, but it kind of helped me to actually um, get familiar with these technologies and started implementing in this caching project that I'm working on. Um, and kind of as Matt mentioned that you have to kind of actually keep yourself updated when you're going for an interview, and that's the only one advice that probably I would also give you guys, that it's better if you and just from the software engineering perspective, I feel that if you kind of be updated with all the technologies, it doesn't matter, you don't have to actually build an app um, uh, to kind of show that, okay, I've already built something that's good to have, but if you could keep yourself updated, trying to understand what HTML or React or CSS, they're majorly from the front end perspective. These technologies are kind of similar, but if you haven't a small POC or maybe some kind of hands-on experience, you would have a good talking point in your interview. To basically, if your interview probably asks you about React, that at least you would have some knowledge of React to talk about, and you wouldn't just ignore that question. And the same applies to the backend technologies. I usually practiced um, online courses of mostly how to build multi-threaded programs and programs that you could easily scale. Um, but but during that process, I did lead code and hacker ranks and these competitive programming stuff online. That kind of helped me to crack down the first two levels of interview. But as you go forward in an interview process, what really matters is is your basic knowledge, rather than these difficult algorithms that no one's gonna probably they might ask you, but they would rather ask you to build something and showcase your basic knowledge of maybe database architecture or a software architecture, rather than designing a critical algorithm. So that's my experience that I could share with you. And yep, that's probably it. If you have any questions.
Well, thanks. Let's take questions for Rahil and also for Matt. I know Matt has to hop off in a few minutes. So again, I want to thank you for coming back here. I'll apologize for showing you the video, your 10-year video, but I look at that sometimes. Anyway, let's have a chance to ask any questions for either Rahil or Matt about the things that they've been doing or told you about. So here's a question for both of you. How much of what you learned in school really helped you, and how much you end up learning on your own right now, in order to be able to do the work that you do?
Do you want the actual answer to that question?
Sure.
I would say I found for anybody that's considering marketing out there, and you're looking at the school that you're at right now, which is heavy in accounting and finance and still has a good base in business. I would say when you go into interviews and when you talk about like using that on a regular basis, lean heavily into that. Being able to balance a balance sheet might not seem like great marketing experiences, but like I said, I've done a lot of different programs. So at Adidas, I think I had a yearly budget around like 2.4 million that I had to generate about 40 million in sales per year. That required sales forecasting, it required budget balancing and POs and a myriad of other things. I'd say I learned a lot of technical skills there. When it came to actual marketing and learning about consumers, that was all basically self-taught. Read a lot of books, case study competitions, go to conferences. I'd say it's a little less than 50.
Thanks. Rahil, how about you? How much on-the-job learning did you have to do in order to be able to do what you do?
Yeah. Okay. Is that for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think
on the job learning.
I my perspective is actually a different perspective. I have that most of the things that I actually learned during my master's or probably even in Sandbox is probably applied at least when you start at least you have a basic knowledge of what has to be done. So if I usually work at the backend side, and I don't have much interaction with the SQL or any database stuff, but if you have anything that you want to actually quickly look up, or if you want to build any functions and stored procedures, just to figure out something that has to be done in backend, that kind of helped me, I feel. So at least what I'm trying to say is I didn't go inside the database thinking that I really don't know anything, and I had probably have to ask someone. But that really didn't happen for me. If you take the SQL courses, or maybe the programming courses, and if you're working on something for the first time, at least you probably would know what has to be done. And obviously when you go forward, when things get complicated, and if you don't know, you probably have to obviously figure out yourself. And if it's really taking more time for you, then probably ask someone in the team. So that helps, I guess. But to keep it short, I took the project management course, and it kind of indirectly applies to what you're working on, the agile process and everything. So you don't actually follow the agile process and everything that you learn in the courses, but it kind of indirectly applies in the background, that you know things have to be done fast. You don't have much time. If you spend more time on something, it's better to ask someone or take someone's help if you don't know, rather than wasting or putting more time into it and costing the project. So that kind of things, small things, that probably applies in the background, but not something that you would be using every day in your work.
Thank you. We have time for maybe one more question, if anybody has another question. before I wrap it up and tell you who's coming next week. So next week you're in for a treat if you're into or interested in entrepreneurship and how to start your own company. Please join us for this series next Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Our speaker will be Jake O'Connell, who graduated just 2 years ago, or 2 graduations ago, so 1 year ago, 2019. And Jake has started several companies, and we'll be talking about what it's like to work at a startup, and also what it's like to start up your own startup technology company. So he's up next week, and then the week after that, we'll be bringing back some folks who work from Wayfair and Mendix to speak. So please stick around for the presentations that are coming up in the weeks ahead. And again, major thanks, big thanks to Matt today and Rahil today for sharing your stories with us. It's good to have you guys back in here.